Web forms are in essence electronic versions of forms. So by using the building tools I'm going to show you that are available in the Webforms desktop, you'll be able to build, customize, publish forms, and then you can add those forms to employee or client records. We will specifically be talking about employee supervision forms for this training. So first, let's take a look at a completed form that has been added to the employee record. And to do that, we actually will go to Employees, to the Employees desktop. We're going to open up that record. Working with the Supervision Event tab. So you'll notice that there actually is a supervision event type here already called Monthly Clinical Supervision. If I click on this plus minus, we'll get to take a look at that actual form. So I've already added this supervision event. If I double click, I can actually look at the completed form. You'll notice that this form has not been signed. So I actually do have a signature element here at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that. So I'm going to go ahead and sign. And when I save with a signature element, the system will automatically mark as fully signed. That actually also locks that form down and makes it read-only. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at actually building a form. So that's actually done back at the Webforms desktop. You have filters that you can set, so you can take a look at the different form types if you want to filter by name, by document type, doc format. Status would actually be one of a couple of statuses, whether it be published or there's another status, rough draft. There actually will be another type which is no longer active or inactivated form. So you'll notice I actually already have a form here. So let's take a closer look at actually building a form. So to start the process of creating a web form, you're actually going to click on Create Web Form Template. Next, you're going to select the doc type. I am actually going to select an employee document. I'm going to select a supervision form for my doc format. I'm going to go ahead and give a form name. Let's call this Supervision Plan. You do have to assign a version number, so I'm going to give that a 1.0. I'm going to save that form. I'm going to get a success notification saying that the web form has been saved. So the first thing we'll take a look at here are actually web form elements. These are standard form building elements that you can drag and drop. You can resize them. You can stylize them. This is actually how you're going to build the basics of your form. First thing I'm going to pull on here is actually the title of my web form. Pull the label element. So you simply grab these elements and you just drag them over to the form builder. So you're actually just kind of building this form right here inside of this area. So if I want to relabel this, I want to actually give it a name. I'm going to name it, again, Supervision Plan. I can actually give it a little bit of style. Let's go ahead and make this bold. I'm going to change the font size. Let's give that a little bit of a larger size. You can also do alignment. You can change the font. I could actually change this to a different font. Once you've added that element, you can drag it and drop it around wherever you need to. You also have grid lines available. So if I click on this checkbox for Show Grid, I get these nice grid lines where I can really start lining stuff up for this form. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually drag a horizontal line just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things you can do here. So, this will give some nice style to your web form. We can change the width of that right there. So if we use the width element, and then you'll notice I have an XY axis, I can drag this and just drag it and drop it to wherever I need that to be. Now I'm going to add a date field. So we could actually call this, if I wanted to relabel, we would call this plan date. And you can stylize this however you want to. Let's make this a 12 point. I'm going to change this to times again. The next I'm going to pull is the name of supervisor. You're going to pull text field. Let's relabel that one. Let's call this name of supervisor. Change that to times. You can also make any of the elements required. One other thing you'll notice as I drag these elements around, I actually have bounding lines. So we call this like a snap function. And that is really cool and really useful for you to be able to line up any of your elements. And it really goes a long way toward helping you build your form. Next, I'm going to add a label followed by a combination of radio buttons. So with a label element, you actually have the ability to just pop in text here. I'm going to make this bold, really stand out. And again, you can drag that element wherever you need it and just drop it down. Let's drag a radio button. Radio buttons do require a value. So this is actually just a means of on target actually tracking particular fields. This can be a number or a letter. Again, if you need to disable a particular field, if you need to relabel it, if you want to change the font size or the styling, you can do that right here at Label Style. And of course, dragging, you get your bounding lines. Let's go ahead and pull that checkbox in. So just go ahead and hit save, very much like notes, very much like anything in OnTarget, with it being a web-based format. Hit save. That way you're not losing any of your work. And the last element that I'm going to pull in here from form elements is a signature pad. So obviously with a signature pad, that's going to give you the ability to sign, whether that be for supervisors or for caregivers. And you can, of course, resize right here using the height element and the width. And we can, again, pull in a label, and we can define that signature pad. And save. Okay, so we do have some of our form elements popped into this new form, the supervision plan form. Some of the next things that we're going to pull in are actually called entities. Entities are a means of adding either an employee or client information to a web form based on known data fields. So in order to add an entity, you first have to click Add Entity. First, you have to name the entity. Typically, you're going to name this as either employee, client. You need to give it some sort of unique designator. So for this, I'm actually going to say employee because I'm going to be pulling in employee entity. The next thing you've got to do is select type, which again for this would be employee. So if you had multiple employees that you were pulling information into this form for, or you were actually adding information for multiple employees, whether it be the supervisor and the employee being supervised, you would need to give a designator here, a 1, a 2. I'm only going to be pulling one employee in, so I'm naming employee. I've selected my type, which is going to be employee. And now mode, at this point, I am just going to simply select read only. So that will actually pre-populate the form based on known information. And then finally, autofill, I'm actually going to select active entity. If you want the form to auto-populate based on the selected employee or client record, that's what you're selecting. You also have the option of logged in user, so that would actually populate the form based on whoever is logged into the system. Typically, for a supervision form, you would be selecting active entity. So let me go ahead with all of that information added. I've finished that by clicking on Add. And you'll notice that now I have a set of form elements based on entities. Again, these are based on known values in OnTarget, things that are already plugged into, say, an employee record. So for this form, I am going to make some edits. I'm actually going to pull in and say the employee first name, the employee last name, and let's go ahead and pull in the code. We can line these elements up. And let's rename that. And our employee code, we could leave it as code, but we'll actually just say employee code. Once we've got all that pulled in, we're going to hit save. So we're going to actually see the results of these entities a bit later. When we actually add this form to a particular employee record, you're going to see this information auto-populate based on an entity. So you'll notice here in our search grid, we now have status, published. So this was the previously created form that I've already added to an employee record. It's listed as published. And then we have the new form that is in a rough draft mode. When I open up my monthly clinical supervision, this is actually a published form. You'll notice that I actually have the option of unpublish. When I click on this, I've actually used this form before. You're going to see what happens when I try to unpublish. I get this error message. And the reason why I'm getting that error message, any used form you can't unpublish. So once you're ready to use a form, then you actually publish the form. Again, this form that the newly created form is in a rough draft mode. So if I'm ready to publish, I simply come down here, click on Save and Publish. So if you want to make changes to a form that has already been published, there is a way to do that. So let's take a closer look at that. In order to do that, you actually have to add a version number. So again, I've used this form. I can't unpublish at this point, but I can actually change the version number. By adding the version number, I can make edits. I can change this form, and then I can republish. So to do that, I come down here, I click on Add Version. You'll notice my version box changes. I can change this to version 2.0. Let's say I want to change staff to contractor. Save my changes. And if I'm good with this, I'm ready to publish, I can simply click on Save and Publish. So before you can add a supervision form to an employee record, again, we've published it. That's number one. Step number one, we've completed it, we've built it, we've published the form. The next thing that you've got to do is actually add a supervision type to the system. So to do that, we go to Configure, List Configuration, Employees, Supervision Types. You'll notice I have a supervision type in already, and we're going to add a new one. So we're going to call this Supervision Plan. You also want to ensure that the new Supervision Event tab is available for any employee records, for any roles that would need access to that. So let's check that. You would need to ensure that it's been opened up in Configuration Security. So to do that, just to double check, if you're a security administrator, configure security, configure roles, select the role in question, select desktop security, expand employees, and here's the control point, supervision event. So you would want to make sure that that checkbox is selected in order for that to populate on the employee record. Now with the supervision event type added and the corresponding web form created and published, we're ready to add the supervision event to the employee record. So let's do that. We're going to go back to our employee desktop, expand employees, select that employee record, and again, we're dealing with supervision events. So first we need to add the supervision type. We're going to put in some information here, the type, the date completed, if we have an expiration date, and we'll talk a little bit about certifications as well. So click Add. We just added that supervision plan as our type, so we're going to select that. We're going to select a completion date. Let's say we completed that yesterday. And if we wanted to give an expiration date, let's say that's an annual, and update. Let's take a look first at the certification. So we actually have built into the system right now a corresponding certification for supervision plan. So in cases where you need the system to actually connect with a certification and you're actually linking a supervision event to a certification, this is where that connection is made. You're actually selecting the corresponding certification right here at the supervision event. So to add the actual web form, we're going to take this plus minus again. We're going to add that event. We add the form. We select our form type, which again is the supervision plan that we've just created, and we click on Add. So here is the supervision plan that we've created, and you'll notice some of these elements are auto-populating. Those are the entities. So those are the employee entities that are actually auto-populating based on the active employee record. So first name, last name, and our employee code, those are things that are auto-popping. So we can plug in our plan date. Again, we had our plan date of 11/2/2016, supervisor name, and we can go ahead and sign off on this. Once you've completed that supervision event, you can now sync this supervision event back into the corresponding certification. So to do that, I actually click on this second icon, this Add Certification, this little plus icon. So when I do this, it's actually going to sync my completion date, my date of expiration, back to the corresponding certification of supervision plan. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get this warning, this message. Am I sure that I want to create and update a certification? Yes, I do. I get a save notification, And I can actually verify that that has, in fact, synced back to the certification. And there we go. So I have my start and end date auto-populated to my certification tab. And all of that was done by syncing from a certification event.